Okay.
Hello,
Hi.
hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
Mm, I think good. I think I'm good. It's been a
Busy
big
day.
day, but like, yeah, a
Uh,
lot of big days, but they're like good days. My team's we're just getting cooking. I'm liking where we're going right now.
nice,
Um, yeah, so it's been really cool. We got Victor. Let's go.
nice. So just so you know, we've currently are in recording mode.
Oh,
But we can choose whether or not we want to keep recording mode. We can choose to keep recording mode and then choose not to share recording. Like so totally up to you. It's your show. I'm here as a attendee, but I just
yeah,
letting you know that it's like by default on this Zoom room, it records and then Josh helps get it onto the YouTubes. So
gotcha. Yeah, I'm very indifferent. Can record it. I think better have it, and who knows, someone wants it and they can have
cool,
it, or nobody wants it and it just hangs out in the ether. So.
cool.
Okay. So I do have editing permissions now. Let's go.
Yes.
It's exciting. Come on.
Good. Sorry
Too much
about that.
space.
I seem to have screwed up a bunch of those, so I
You're
apologize.
good. You are good. Google Drive is tricky. Um, okay. So, right. What is the goal of this? The goal of this is to kind of make more headway on the investment portion. Um, I'm not the best writer, so I'm trying to at least get thoughts onto Doc and make sure that the thoughts kind of align, not necessarily having it all wordsmithed out. I don't think that's the goal of this, but rather just making sure that the general concepts are kind of maybe a bit more determined. And then from there, I can do quite a bit more wordsmithing and kind of figuring out, um, yeah, how to put these ideas together. Um, does that sound good to you too?
Sounds like what I'd expect for the current stage of things. So
Let's
just as
go.
like a recap of what I'm as the I guess project manager-ish person for this stuff is like I don't expect I'm hoping that there will be a clarity of ideas by I think it's next Tuesday when we might be a week from Tuesday when we have a call to kind of go through the detailed sections across the board where like we can start to see the differences in the way people have tackled it and where we need to find alignment and those kind of things. And then there's another week or two before I'm hoping to have a clarity in like also format. So the idea of spending today making sure that you're getting feedback on and building your kind of topics for the different sections seems spot
Mhm.
on to me for where we're at in the process. So all good from my
Got it.
side.
Cool. Okay, so maybe we can start out with the kind of description and then kind of go from there. So I just kind of took some time last night to just sort of like get some ideas a bit more documented down. And then I have like old thoughts from the last draft that I just kind of threw in here to at least kind of get some of the brain juices flowing, even though they don't necessarily correlate all the way, just something to kind of be thinking about. But for the description, at least, I kind of started out with like some type of definition of like, well, what are we classifying investment as? Um, I just kind of used to expend money, effort, or time with the expectation of achieving a goal. It's pretty broad, but I think it kind of hits why we chose to do investment instead of funding, instead of it just being more of like one dimensional. Like it can take many forms. How do you guys feel about at least that kind of start to it? Sound okay? All right.
Yeah,
From
I was
there,
I was
yep.
sorry, I was gonna
Mhm.
leave room for Victor in case,
You're
but
good.
yeah, I think that's I read that you've had that there for a little while now, and I just thought that was perfect. Like when I saw it, I thought the you captured exactly as you just summarized the difference between investment and funding and why
Mhm.
investment is I think the term that everyone felt more comfortable with, and I think you did that really well. So yeah.
Yeah. I thought this sentence might have been a little redundant because I know we make this claim about it not being one size fits all in a previous section. And so I don't know if this really needs to be there. I just have it in there. But yeah, I don't know.
I
Kind
think
of
that
different.
it's a good shout, and I think you're right. We are reiterating that, but I don't think it's bad to reiterate. But maybe can we
Yeah.
make it? maybe we can make it a bit more specific. So something like,
Yeah, I like that.
because different companies have different levels of resources to spend, you'll find that a company may be more heavily in like time, may invest a lot of time and build it themselves, whereas another company who has more, I mean, this is not English, but
Yeah,
has
I'm
more in
with
their
you.
coffers, can just buy it, right? So you, like what the high level is making it specific to the fact that money, effort, and time are differently allocated across companies because they are differently collected across companies. And so
Agreed.
that can indicate how people choose to go about things. So yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah, so that sounds good. So just really trying to make it a bit more relevant to the overall topic instead of keeping it broad like this, like we had previously. Um, that sounds good. Yeah, and then some type of bridge over to the levels. Like probably mix this up a bit more based off of what's set up here. But anything else that you guys think needs to be included within the description? Or do you guys think this is I think this is at least a bit more of like a I think this concept doesn't need a ton of explaining, so I don't want to go overkill on like really going hard on like what is investment. I think people kind of understand the gist once you kind of label it. But I'm wondering if it makes more sense to talk about this further.
Yeah, for me, I think it's great. I learn benefit a lot from this kind of discussions at every organizing. I think learning both technical management as well as language, English. So yeah, I think this is good.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, I agree. I think it's really good. I think that the second paragraph is one of those ones that we're gonna have to decide what we do as a like consistency with the paper. Like, do
True,
we always
true,
put in a paragraph similar to that or a sentence similar to that or not? Which, so
true.
I think definitely leaving it there as a discussion point. That's the kind of thing I want to try and talk about in that like across aspect detail session that we're going to do in like a week and a half, because like
Yeah,
that's what we have to just get alignment on. How do we like how it reads? How do we think, yeah, the consumability of this paperwork. So just to call out, I think that's a really well written sentence. We just have to decide, do we do sentences like that or not as a group?
I like that.
The only other thing the other thing that is a high level kind of format question, but I could imagine being useful is, and I don't think I could imagine the sentence right this second. I think this is something we'd have to come back and add in once we got a little bit more comfortable with each level. Is I wonder if there's a sentence or two where we summarize the evolution. So we don't talk about any one
I like
level,
that.
but we kind of go, what you'll find with this evolution is and like, so my current thinking for this aspect is there's like a broadening of what costs, there's a clarifying of what costs are allocatable to the platform effort, and also a broadening in some way. So you're sort of narrowing and broadening, but clarifying, like that's sort of the maturity I see here. Like at the beginning, it's like, oh, I pay someone to build me a platform. And at the
Mhm.
end, and then like at the end, what I'm talking about is like I'm investing in the outcomes that this product helps achieve. And that's like, that might mean hiring a content marketing person, which like if you talk to somebody who's in level 1 about content marketing person for
Sure.
like their internal platform, they would laugh you off the street.
Right.
Maybe level 4 would as well, given their context, but like you could imagine that in level 4 versus you can't even like talk about it at level 1. And that's, so I think having a think about what we want from these opening paragraphs.
It
I think
almost
you're,
kind of sounded like your the specificity. Mm, that sounds like even deeper than just like a summary. It sounds like almost like you're kind of including like application in there and like what it could practically look like. Were you just giving an example, or are you just wanting to keep it to like surface level summary of the levels? Oh, yeah.
yeah, I hear what you're saying. So my example I gave, like a content marketer, was to
Right,
clarify my intention of the sentence. I would not, right now, my current thinking, I would not want that example at this level. But I realized that my attempt at writing a sentence that would be at this level was pretty poor. And so I was trying to like clarify the intention so that like
Yeah.
you and I and Victor could like be on the same page. And
see.
then like how do we write a good sentence for that? So the
I
thing I
see.
could, so just to confirm, the thing I could see at this level is a sentence which summarizes the feeling of evolving through this stage. And this is something that I think we need to decide as a group. Do we want that kind of evoking of emotion, of movement for every aspect? Because I think we either do it for every or none. And talking about an example for this aspect, I think it has to do with that, like, maturity comes with being more, this is gonna be a terrible sentence. Maturity come in this aspect comes with having more open-mindedness about where costs may be incurred to be
Mhm.
successful with platforms, while at the same time clarifying who truly should be paying the costs of platform offerings. Like, so it's like that clarification and also broadening of it. That's the kind of sentence I could see. I just thought about that as I would not, I'll be honest, I would not have thought about that type of a sentence had you not
Yeah,
written that second paragraph. And I like this, and that drew me into this idea of like, ooh, what are we trying to achieve in this opening paragraph? Is it like,
yeah.
or opening like statement? Is it just what does investment mean? Or is it also what is this progression like? Or is it also, yeah. And so question mark.
Okay. I think that's good enough. It's at least something that kind of draws to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like that as well. Okay, good questions. I like that. It's a good start. And there's some action that could be taken specifically with this. This I think can definitely be struck beforehand. I think maybe even an attempt at this could even be done within this. Even if we end up removing it in the next meeting, we decide we don't want to go with this. It's at least something that could help even the rest of the flow of this. It could kind of having us our own internal label the feelings. So I think that's good as well. And then yeah, this is just something we need to talk about across the board. Cool. That's good stuff. I like that. Good start. All right, level one. Yeah. So I think just generally, maybe before I just dive into level one, so I mean, I had really kind of contemplated like, okay, now that we've got some things set, do I actually like really like agree with these things? And yeah, I believe I do. I believe I definitely like, I think the difference between this and this, kind of makes sense to me. I think it'd probably be good to like define like, well, what is a technical cost center? I'll put that as a comment. Meanings, but if I understand it correctly, I think it makes sense. And the difference between that and a product budget makes sense. I think this is where I was getting lost. I was like, profit center, how is this different than a product budget? So I just put a question mark. And so I think maybe before hopping into one, maybe getting like a bit more clarity about maybe that's just a good place to start with each of them. It's just having just a general definition of them so that they're just clear, and then maybe diving into the symptoms of what that would practically look like. What do you guys think? Cool. All right. So maybe let's start with one we can kind of go down. So voluntary or temporary. I mean, let me go back to editing mode. Definition. I mean, I think it's kind of self-explanatory in this one, right? Like it's uh definition of this may be not yeah, it's a good question. It's a lot easier to kind of think about symptoms of it than the actual definition of what it is. Um it's
I think one thing that's interesting about this one that's different from other squares is that it's two different words. Whereas with a
Yeah.
lot of the other ones, it's like one concept. And I think that
True.
the intention behind that is that like we were on the phone that like one day when we were talking about this stuff, and somebody was like, well, we do this when like we're not on clients. We work on our platform. But like we're being paid to do it. Like we're being told like this is what you should do when you're not on a client and we're getting our salary. And like so we're being paid to do it. So it's not voluntary because it started as voluntary is the only word. And it was like true, but like you're only doing that until your client then will bill for you again. Like or you can bill again for your client. So like you're temporary, which has a very similar effect, which is like it's sort of a best effort situation. So maybe that's actually a better word for this rather than voluntary or temporary. Maybe it should be best efforts. Like I'll add that as a comment here. Like, but regardless of if we want to change the actual name, that's the like maybe that's the definition is something around best efforts.
Best efforts. Best efforts. Can you explain that a bit more? Best efforts.
Sorry, that's
So
probably British. I sometimes lose track of what's British and what's American. I'm sort of caught in that like just enough years here that like it seems normal to me now. So thank you for asking. Um, so best efforts meaning like best intentions. Like people genuinely like care, but there is nothing which is like tied to their like long-term success, career growth, um, expectations, career ladder, like budgeting for the next year if they're like in charge of a budget, if they're a budget holder. Like there's not that sort of like thread of long-term kind of engagement with a thing. It's sort of like people pop in and pop out. It's actually I would argue as like a good example is the work we do with the CNCF working group, like all of us that are involved, is on a best efforts like way of working. So we pop in when we can and we do the best, we offer what we can, but then when something else pops up, we sort of go, I'm out for a couple weeks. Like I've got to go focus on this other thing. I'll be back when I can. And it's sort of like that. That would be a good description of a best efforts, I think. But it's striking me that that's probably not a good thing to change the title to if it doesn't if it's not clear to people what that means. So
yeah, so I think to try to interpret what you're saying, it sounds like level one, that at this provisional stage, that it sounds like when it comes to investment, it's really like hey, like if this is a priority, it may be it's not necessarily very well documented or like this is exactly what level priority and how it aligns with strategic goals is, but this is something that we would like to be done. And when it comes to like actually investing in that goal, yeah, it may go as far as like you telling someone, hey, you should pay attention to this, and fulfill this tactical goal. There's not really a lot of conversation about what this actually look like in the strategic long term. Is that kind of
I
right?
think tactical is a very good use of words here. Yes, I think that's a very good use of words.
Okay. So strictly tactical approaches to the platform, maybe like a means to an end. Like there's a maybe like a shorter term goal or a customer that we're trying to help, right? And it may be around until that short term goal is reached, but there's not really a longer term plan destined for this.
Yeah, it's sort of the like it's putting out fires is like more the
Yeah.
thought process. Like, oh, there's a fire over there. We've got to put it out. Okay, like invest until that fire is out and then stop a bit and then like move on kind of thing. Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
I'd put that in parentheses.
I think this is like the hard part is like in some cases it'll be just pure firefighting. And in other cases it might be just lack of investment. Like they don't really see a huge benefit in improving the developer experience and therefore they just sort of chip away at it. Like
Yeah.
it's going to be different experiences, but like it's that idea of like, oh, they're just tactically like chipping away at things, like doing things as and when they need to or have availability to, not because there's been like a more strategic longer term investment into something.
Sure. I'm making this phrase up, but the phrase I'm thinking about is like tactical instrument, like something that's like kind of labels, because similar, we got like technical cost center, product budget, profit center, and it's not only that the current configuration or 1 second, oh my gosh, here we go. Voluntary or temporary. It's fundamentally not even just that there's two words. It's fundamentally different in a lot of ways where we're labeling it with like a I don't know if pronouns the right word, but like there's a this is like I would say these are all nouns while these are all adjectives or adverbs, voluntary, one of the two. Add
No,
something.
sorry. I
They
might live
describe.
lived in 2 English native speaking languages, but I do not know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So the one thing I would say is if you want to, the reason why we're spending time on the details is I expect that the work on the details will improve the table. Just to be clear,
Yeah.
the words that we wrote on that table were a best efforts. There you go. A best
Yeah.
efforts
I'm
attempt at
with
the
you now.
table. And as we get into the weeds of writing these details, we will identify where there are misalignments, poor choice of words, etc. So I don't want to discourage changing the words, but I do want to make sure we surface those in the right way because that's
Yep.
slightly different than the detail. So definitely throw that in there as like either a suggestion or as like a comment so that people can, and I'm wondering if we want to try and think about how we can get that into the you can sort of make a comment on the spreadsheet that is on the I mean the version 2. So if you go into version 2, like I think it might be at the top of the page, you can click into the platform maturity model.
There you go.
Yeah, and then
Thank
I
you.
think if you highlight the word in there, voluntary or temporary, I think you'd be able, which I just did, so I'll undo that. I think you can add a comment there or add a suggestion there, and
Yeah,
that will drive a much more effective conversation because it'll be more visible to more people.
Yeah.
For that, but
Yeah, and it's just an idea. We can
and
kind
I'll
of
just
talk.
add this may align better with the way the tone of the other level titles without changing the intention. A discussion in this came up. Cool. I'm just adding a bit of context to the suggestion, and then yeah, I think that's great. That will hopefully drive the right conversation. And so,
Yeah, even if that's not the right phrase, I think something that can kind of align because I really like the rest of these. I like the idea of it. I think it's just
cool.
kind of get this in sync. So yeah, that sounds good. So regardless of that, I think this at least gives like a bit of a definition. What do you guys think about this? Like just kind of like a means to an end, strictly tactical approach to building the platform or having engineers around. Okay. To investing in platform. There you go. And then descriptions, maybe the way.
Yeah,
Me,
the power of edit and suggesting is always like
too much power.
yeah.
Description, and then I can. There we go. Okay, that's better.
Cool.
Yeah, I'll probably keep doing this format. So descriptions of this is that, yeah, maybe not a lot of prioritization from the executive level. Self-organization from employees on the ground floor. I didn't really like the phrase I used here. Self-organization from employees, ground floor. It's like the actual workers from
Yeah.
the
Bottom up
platform.
is often the phrase that's
bottom
used.
up. There you go. The bottom up. So employees
From the bottom up.
from bottom up. Yeah.
That's I'm not sure that's a great phrase, but that's definitely the one that comes to mind first when you use that kind of idea.
Yes, there you go. This is it. Self-organization from the bottom up. Serves a temporary purpose without much thought about fits into the longer term plans. slash initiatives. Slash strategic initiatives. Oops. There you go.
Just added one at the end there. I think it's the idea that because this is bottom up, you may have like team over there building something, team over there building something. They may or may not confuse each other,
Agreed.
fight with each other,
Yeah.
conflate each other, whatever, right? So, yeah. Out of curiosity, you mentioned that you wanted to get ideas down because you didn't want to wordsmith yet.
Right.
And then you mentioned, oh, I think I'm going to keep it in this format, this definition description. Is your
Oh,
vision for
yeah.
this paragraph or bullet point? Do you have
Paragraph,
an idea?
sorry, when I said,
Yeah.
keep it in this format just for this session, just keeping
Just
like
this session.
the rest like this, and then kind of mapping it to paragraphs was the
Yeah.
idea. I'm open-minded though.
Yeah, no, I had paragraph was what we used before, so that was my default
Mhm.
behavior, but I'm actually curious if other people come back with bullet points, and I think that might be again a good conversation to have in the next, like in the like aligning session, right? Because what I'm hoping is everyone will start to like have talked about what their details are, which is then you can start to see the like level of depth they go to, the formats they go to, like these kinds of things. Then we can be like, oh boy, I didn't do that kind of depth. Oh, I use a different format. Okay, what do we now? Let's talk like that. So
Yeah, agreed.
no pressure in either direction. It's just something I noticed. So I'm
Yeah.
very happy with either.
Well said, yeah, probably, and I like the idea of, because we can go back into the history, because I kind of like the idea of having the bullet points somewhere, even in case like we decide if we meet as a group, we're like, man, having some bullet points would actually be good.
Yep.
So I don't have to go back. I think you can go into history somewhere in here. I just forgot how all
You
this
can,
works.
yeah, you can, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There it is. I see. Okay.
Exactly. So it's all there. And what you can do is when you get done with this call, we can make a named version. So you could always come back to the end of this call
Good
time
thinking.
period as well if you want. But
Good thinking.
sorry,
Okay.
I'm being bad. I'm pulling you too far away from your
You're
intention of
good.
the call.
I mean,
I
these are good
apologize.
thoughts. These are good thoughts. I'm with it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got kind of some of that. Anything else that we want to add to the description? I assume as writing starts, probably more stuff maybe added, but I think we're kind of getting the essence here.
I agree.
Okay. Anything you got, Victor?
Yeah, I mean, I always think that the previous tables has been looked perfect to me multiple times that they were kind of start over again. So yeah, I really hard to pick any problem with it, and looks good.
Cool. Okay, well, let's keep rolling then. So similarly, we'll do a definition for this one. And description. Okay. So technical cost center. So yeah, kind of what I pulled from this, if I had to define this, there's some intentionality, right? So now there's like deliberate from the top of like, okay, we're going to allocate these many resources, but the way that the resources are allocated is still maybe short-sighted, and is not thinking of the platform as like what we're going to get to, like a true product, but rather as a yeah, thanks for that. That's helpful. That's super helpful.
I'm listening. I just figured I'd get the
Yeah,
yeah.
you're good. But yeah, trying to translate it into like what is like we're seeing this as like a genuine priority that has like a value stream and affects real people and brings about real value. How do I say that though? Do you guys agree with that? How do you guys see technical cost centers?
I think from my perspective, this is about, there's still a perception of sort of putting out fires versus, which is to your point of that like tactical versus strategic, like you're still in the tactical point of view. I think you said that and I would agree with that. I think that the thing at this stage is that you likely see it as a cost to be minimized. So you likely see this as like it's a necessary, you know, phrases that come to mind are it's a necessary evil. So it's a thing you must do, but you don't particularly enjoy the amount of money you have to spend on it, or that it is a like yeah, I think just that idea of like it's a high cost that people view as as something that they want to reduce the cost of as much as possible, often.
Yeah, so I think the whole idea of the model is for someone like on the VP level to take a look and see where we are, right? So the description, like for example, the level 1 description, all that, it can be sort of matrix that a VP use to say where we are right now. So level 1 will be, you know, where just people randomly trying things, you know, starting things. Level 2, now that we have a kind of platform going on, so people are starting to, you know, spending, because the investment is just like you put, it's not just money, right? It's also time, effort, and all that.
Right.
So a lot of people are starting to get interested and think, oh, this is good. So we're starting to put effort into it. Now that become a cost center, because this is not something we can just ignore because there are too many people spending time on it, and some even invest money in it. So that's why, I think cost center, I understand like that.
And that's, I really like that, Victor, because that's that like necessary part. Like at this stage, people know it's necessary. They know they have to pull together all these efforts that are happening that are costing time and money, but aren't cohesive and aren't pulling in the same direction. And that's the necessary part. And the evil, like the necessary but evil, is like that idea of like, but they don't yet see it as a like broadly improving thing. They see it as like a cost that they have to pay. So,
yeah. Is this really helping, or is this kind of distracting from the main business drivers?
Yeah.
Well said. Okay. Yeah, I like that. So if I had to try to define all of that, mm, mm, yeah, I need to think about this a bit more. I think we've got, so I think maybe starting with description may lead into this. So to try to cover what you guys said, so you guys kind of did a lot of describing. I try to kind of, I like that point, Victor, of like, they've had this really monetary point of view, but it may not be like, man, how are we actually organizing people? What is like the longer term goal of this project? So it's kind of outlined here. I really think about the longer term goals and how not a clear plan on how this integrates with the company's strategic direction. Yeah, just seen as costs. Employees are intentionally spending time building the platform, but that time is to be used as minimally as possible so they can work on things. Yeah, what do you guys think about this? I added this last night, that time is like, put the time in that you need to, but after, you know, it's done, just get away and like do the other things that really like bring in the money. Yeah, so I'm trying to kind of get more components of it than just like, you know, that is, yes, it's a cost center, but it's also the perception on humans or time and effort investment.
Yeah.
Yeah, may not be prioritized as well.
So the thing here so the reason I was thinking deeply about it, because I really liked the sentence, but I wasn't sure if I felt like it fit better at level 1 or level 2. So the reason why I was having that thought is because at level 1, it's like that idea of like the platform is just the thing you have to do because you have to do it, but then you get back to the other work. And that's what triggered,
Right.
is this level 1? But actually, I can see with a very small tweak this being really, really effective as level 2, in that idea that like there is at level 2, you're likely thinking about the quickest way to solve a problem versus a like more investment heavy but impact high way of doing it. So what I'm thinking about is like you need to go do something to a server, you're
I got
probably
you.
doing it manually at this stage. And maybe you're getting someone to talk, like you're talking someone into the idea of doing it via like the API so you can do it automatically. But that's like you're definitely not creating like a self-service way of doing that, right?
Yeah.
And so like because you just don't see that value in investing in that next kind of level of interaction. Yeah. So very interesting idea though.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That's well said. Okay, those are all good things to think about. Anything that you guys would add to these descriptions? I'm thinking I can kind of think about this a bit more and add a better definition, but for now, maybe continuing to kind of move. I think we got a good description that should bring us to a logical conclusion for how to define it. Okay. That being said, let's move on to 3. Product budget. So yeah, I think this is obviously where you're getting a lot more strategic. You're thinking about how does this align with the company's overall priorities. As you're doing budgetary planning, the platform is not just considered as like an expense, but now this is a like product that we need to like have like intentional investment with, not just for short-term effects, but for the longer term goals. And thinking about the other stakeholders that are included in that, in those decisions. I didn't really understand this. I think I took this from one of the past versions, but that it's got with a separate building. I assume that because it's a product, like thinking of it as like a product is what's trying to be conveyed here.
I think that came from a past version, and I can describe it a little bit. Yeah, it is. I can see it under past version, the first sentence there.
Yeah.
Just clarify my own thoughts. So the idea here is that at the time when the table was in a different shape, one of the ways in which we were describing funding was the idea that like at 1 level, the cost of the platform is like 50,000, like at a small company might be 50,000 a month. And it'd be like, and that includes about 40,000 in like AWS bill and like 10 in humans, or even more so 45 in AWS and 5 in humans or something, right? Like that's sort of where you're at. But you see the cost of that platform is 50, and you see those like 3 humans who are like Herculean effort to like hold it all together as costing you 50,000 a year or a month, I meant. And you're just like, that's ridiculous. Versus at the next level, the idea is like, we spend this much on infrastructure. So we spend 45,000 on infrastructure at a small company. That's a lot of money. We need to talk about how to be more cost effective. And this is how much we spend on the humans that are doing this work. And the amount of leverage those humans have way outpays their salaries, right? Like, and so you no longer are putting pressure on those humans to like do more. You're not,
I
look
see.
at kind of thing. So that was the intention. I'm not saying it was well done or it was right. We moved
Yeah.
on from that, but that was the intention.
I like the idea though. I think the idea makes sense. And so I think probably maybe a way to rephrase that is maybe even like the value of the platform's efforts, platform's the value of the platform as well as its expenses are what I want to say is like, or thought about in a much more like measured or appropriate, um, way, right? Like it's possible for you to absolutely be spending way too much money on a platform, right? Or on platform engineering efforts. But if you're not really going through and doing like a good like analysis of what is the value that the platform is bringing, or what are we like losing from the platform, and having a good like with metrics involved, stuff like that. If you're not doing those calculations, you're not really gonna know what is the overall impact. You know, you're going, yeah, you're maybe
It's
even just
really,
looking at your expenses, we're losing this money, yeah.
that's a really good point about measurement, because I'm just opening up and looking up at the table, and like measurement at that level, at level 3. And again, we're not asking people to always measure themselves as level 3 for everything at the same time, but these
Right.
things should be reasonably aligned so that people can see that they would be a level 3 if they're doing all these things or whatever. Is quantitative and qualitative driving, measurement driving high level objectives. Like that is what you're describing as the behavior in your investment. And what qualitative and quantitative metrics are you talking about? You're talking about the ones that are cost related, and that's because we're in the investment level. So I think that's actually, it's a good indicator that this is that we're on the right track, I think. I
Yeah.
think that the thing that I would focus on the most if I were you here is the word product, because it's like with a product there is all sorts of additional like thought process. It's products are optional. Products are require selling and supporting in a way that is maybe different than like a script or a like service that you offer, a manual service that you offer. Like, so I think that that's like one of the big changes that's happening in this level, is that like product mindset. Yeah. And the
Yeah, I
costs
like the
associated with a product mindset.
mindset. I like that word, mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Just really thinking about how to market this project, distribute this product, at what rate, at what time, really kind of thinking through the details for how to like consider this product. Okay, yeah, I think that's good stuff. Anything else that you guys would add to the description here?
Yeah, I'm just adding my understanding of this thing. I think there's talked about the minimal viable products as a concept. I think that should be level 2 thing. I think that's one things are being this. So this is mostly a platform is a combination of open source and some other services, right?
Mhm.
So in level 2 there's a minimum viable products, and in level 3 that's one. The management sees that, okay, this is actually good. This is different from what we typically have as off the shelf products. This platform thing actually has a potential to give us a competitive advantage. But of course, to realize that advantage, that's level 4, right? So at this point, so the last sentence here says, you already have it here is given strategic planning that aligns the company overall priority. So management already realized that it has really a strategic value in it in this platform.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. It sounds like if I've got you right, the difference between in terms of like, I think it sounds like we're kind of talking about some of like the outcomes almost, or no, well, because sorry, to just to make sure I understand what you said is that instead of having like in 2, right, we might use some generic solutions like to build on this platform, we're going to start using Kubernetes or something like that, right? Or just starting to kind of throw tools at it. You're really thinking in level 3, how can we really use these tools to start to like solve real strategic, practical problems that whatever, part of the company is having. Does that sound kind of like what you're saying?
Yes, yeah. 2 is really just having some project that's going with it, but doesn't know, okay, is this really going to be the direction our company need to go to, right? So, but level 3, it's a product because products one set is one way to describe it, but basically saying this thing is good. This could be something that's going to create value, strategic value for our organization. So it's worth the investment as a budget.
Yeah, I think I really like that separation between 2 and 3 as like the realization of like the investment and is like having return and those kinds of things. The one earlier on in that conversation, you were talking about what they really see value when they get to 4. And one thing I would just call out is I think as more than any other aspect, maybe. Is that fair? More than any other aspect? I think this is one of the aspects that is going to most frequently see teams finish at level 3. I think that, like we've always said, that we do not want to create a model where it's about climbing the mountain and every team has to get to level 4 or else they're failures. Like that's not the model we're creating. Like level 4 is okay to be a stretch and only necessary in some cases. And this is, I think, one of the aspects that has that particularly true about it. So definitely keep and sorry, and so period. Separately, I would say we want one thing I really want to encourage as a tone of the entire model is that you have done good at every level. So that when someone reads something, they're like, this describes me and the successes I'm having, but also acknowledges or identifies the failure, like the challenges I'm facing, right? So like what I don't want is anyone reading any one of these levels on any one of these aspects and being like, oh my God, I'm the worst. I should just like stop now. Like this is terrible. Like we want, obviously at level 1, there's gonna be a lot more challenges identified, but like I think they're still making progress, right? They're still doing things. There are still humans who care about making things better and reducing cognitive load and identifying where platforms could be helpful, right? Like, does that make sense as like a goal? I don't know if I've said that before, but that's something that I think is important for like just success of this, like is to have people feel like good after they read it rather than feel like defeated, you know?
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think that's something that I would advise to be like iterated when we meet as a group, as a larger group, kind of like getting the larger tone of the paper across the board should kind of emphasize that. And that may be something that when we're trying to think about this bridge or something that kind of connects before getting into each of these, that sentiment is expressed in some way, in a specific way for investment, or it could be something that we express a bit more. I think I think it's expressed a bit at the top level as before you get into the nitty gritties. But maybe that's something that can even be expressed more up there. But yeah, I think having some alignment of like how we want to express that all along. Obviously, the general tone of like the summaries or descriptions here should be not like, man, you're over here, you're not prioritizing this, you're trash. Get out of here. Like quit reading the paper if you're over here. But I think there's the other end of like, I think there's a general way we can do that.
I've added that to the top level, like kind of success criteria of the details as a suggestion. So similar to how I suggested to you not to edit it, but to suggest it so that it calls attention to it. I've done the same so that we can call attention to that and make sure we have that discussion in the wider group. So cool. Great.
Love it. Okay, we got 9 minutes. I think again, this is probably in a good enough spot to derive a definition. Would you guys agree?
Yep.
Yeah, there's someone I think I need help with the most. I feel like I'm having a hard time figuring out after we get to 3, where do we go? What is a profit center? So I'm a little curious about the context of profit center. What was kind of the general mindset when people were thinking about this?
Let's talk about it. And this is also, as I say, when we get to the nitty gritties, when we find out if our levels work. So, but the big thing about a profit center is, I don't know if you've ever heard this phrasing before when it comes to technology, but when different companies treat different activities as either cost centers or profit centers.
Sure.
And the idea is something that you spend money on and something that earns you money. And in general, of course, you have cost centers that enable you to earn money, but they are just your costs, right? So
Yeah.
like some companies would look at, like, for example, I used to be in test engineering in QA. QA is very frequently considered a cost center. It's very frequently considered something you have to spend money on because it's like it's like a
Right.
fundamental need for technology, but it's not what's helping you make money as a company. Like, so you're
Right.
not thinking about how much, like, by your QA doing an hour's work, how much money have you earned? Like, that's not how that works, right? So where we bring in profit center here is the idea that, like, your your platform can actually improve the earnings of the company.
Mhm.
And like the profit of the company, and that could be through improved cost balancing. So like
Yeah.
it could be like basically cost savings oriented improvements, or it could be about like fundamentally improving, like mapping the uh platform capabilities to things you sell in the marketplace to your end users. It could be, I don't know exactly, it'll depend per company, but that's the idea is being able to track the actual monetary value in your company's balance sheet to the platform's work, versus the one level 3, you give the platform the ability to like work with a budget that they can spend on things that maybe seem tangential but they want to invest in for themselves, which might include like
Mhm.
technical writers and things like that. This is like you actually attach to the profit sheet of the company. Does
Gotcha.
that make
Mhm.
sense? It might not be right to include it here. I
I
think that it
see.
is a big stretch for people, for like
Yeah.
examples in the marketplace that do this, but I think it's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. Um, so it sounds like, just to clarify, so it sounds like difference between 3 and 4 is maybe kind of like I put here, right? We're maybe measuring the value of the platform. Doesn't necessarily mean that that measurement or that, cost to analysis, right, that we're doing, the income is outweighing the expenses, right? But here it's without clear doubt. We have, I think, actually, this is probably a good one. We have like a data-driven approach to be able to, actually, this is really good. This is a good definition of what you just said.
I didn't even look
Yeah,
at that,
that's
to be fair, but I was
yeah.
probably involved in writing it, so that doesn't make
Yeah,
that's not too surprising. I think that like the difference, maybe I would say as well, is that like at level 3, the value is measurable, as in the speed of your CI/CD pipeline has
right,
improved, or the speed of onboarding a new developer has improved. All good things, all things that can re, re, result in more investment in the efforts associated with the platform, but nothing to do with your business. Versus the things that you're measuring at level 4 are business
right.
metrics, like your sales are going up, your price per sale is going up, your rate of onboarding new customers is going up, and like you're measuring that that's happening not just because of a feature team's new widget on the UI, but because of something that this platform has like enabled and done and pushed, if that makes sense.
I'm with you.
I was also reading the past version. That's not very good way you do it. If you leave the past version there,
Yeah,
what Abby was talking, I say, okay, this is exactly what this past version is about.
yeah,
That word has
yeah,
stayed the same, to be fair. So the change from funding to an investment was actively, I believe, a good change for this aspect. However, that like, and so we ended up changing a bit of the levels to align with investment, but at the end of the day, the 4th level stayed the same. And I think there's an argument, as I said, that this isn't quite right. And so if you identify a better breakdown, like a different level 1 or a different level 2 or whatever, that would kind of push out this level 4 into not being
right.
included, like I think, as I said, I'm quite torn on it. I think it's a good one, but I think it
I think
is
so too.
quite esoteric for a lot of people. Like, I don't think it's
Yeah.
close to where a lot of people are. And so I could see arguments for not including it. So
Yeah, I could also see it either way. I think the pause I have with this structures, it's tricky because a lot of these, outside of level one, let's say, the rest of these really have an emphasis on like on money. They all kind of have like, technical cost, budget, and profit center. And so there's like argument made like, okay, like we've moved to investment, but are we still measuring it with just money? But on the other end, I think money is an indicator of like that original definition, right? To expend money, effort, or time. Where your money goes also is going to influence the effort and time. And so I also see the other side of like, it's kind of nice keeping it around of like, yeah, we'll talk about the money component, but also the other descriptors from that, So I'm mixed on it as well.
Yep.
Okay, I think it's good enough. I think we've got some good progress. We've got a lot to go off of. Victor, if you want to help with some of the definition / like probably way I'll kind of start doing this is maybe like paragraphs, something like that. You can have like a section and just kind of start writing like something each. Probably a good approach. So if you want to help, feel free. If not, it's okay too. But probably the next step will be kind of just getting some things outlined and kind of figured out from all this. Yeah, and then I'll probably have like another session like this because our group meeting is what? Is that 2 weeks? Oh, let's go. Big
I think it's
time.
a week
Okay.
from Tuesday. So I think we've got a
Yeah,
bit of time. Yeah.
that's
Yeah, I
awesome.
didn't
Okay.
want to rush people. So it's an
I
odd thing,
appreciate that.
right? Because it's like, if you don't put deadlines, people don't do things.
No, they
But
won't.
if you put deadlines like too far out or no deadline, it's like really hard to motivate to do things, at least for me personally. But then at the same time, you don't want to like look, again, we're all on best efforts. This is all our
Yeah.
side hustle, like side gig. Like we don't have time all day every day to work on this. And so like we want to
Yeah.
be realistic for people.
Agreed.
Because the other
Preach.
person, oh, Colin, go on. I was gonna say, you're here. Do you want to jump
just
in on
said
some of this
preach.
stuff?
That's all.
So,
That's all I got.
preach.
Preach.
But yeah, I don't know, Colin, like I don't know if you have one of these aspects that you have particular alignment with and want to get deeper on, or if you want to just review over the top of all of them, but yeah, just keep posted.
Yeah, I'm
basically.
figuring that out too. I'm kind of in the
Fair.
same boat with your last message a little bit, Abby.
Yeah, fair. I get it. Cool. But yeah, no, this has been really good, and I can help schedule things and stuff if you want. But
Yeah.
Should that be a paragraph, or because the definition and description that looks pretty good, so it still need to be turned into a paragraph?
Yeah, so what I'm thinking is we kind of like refine all this, get the definitions down for each of these, and then kind of like you can sort of use these as like a template to sort of like match it up with the paragraphs from here and sort of figure out like how does this kind of align? Like how can I actually write this in like paragraph format? And honestly, we can keep all of these around. We can have the paragraphs here, definition, descriptions, and then come into the meeting together with
and then just
where we're
read
trying to
it all
decide what
when-
to do.
yeah.
Yeah, and we can always collapse whatever, delete whatever, And so, yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking for this.
I agree. I think the one thing I'd caution you against is worrying about getting every detail into this. So so one vision, we've talked about this hierarchy of documents within the CNCF working group of like white paper to maturity model to more detailed things. There will be deeper documents on some of these topics. Do not try and write a white paper for each of these. You will drive yourself nuts, right? So aim for clarification over complete detail.
Well said. I like that.
Yeah. But thank you
Okay.
for hosting this, and let me know if you need any help with scheduling anything else. And
I'll message
I've
you.
been poking a nose into all the documents, so I'll be around. You can't get rid of me too easily. So
Darn.
yeah.
That's okay. Okay. Good to see you guys.
Awesome. See you later. Bye, y'all.